Hello and welcome to the Level Up Lounge. I'm John Richardson. I'm joined today by my co-host Dwayne Wilson-Clark, and we've got a really cool conversation today with our guest Jamie McClenaghan, who is the founder of Classy Game Studios here in Dubai. Yep. Jamie.
Thank you very much. How are we?
Good, very well.
Good. How are you?
Well.
I'm great. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come on and have a little conversation with yourselves. Really excited for it.
Friend of the show, shall we say?
Friend of the show, mates rates.
Mates rates, yeah. Remember that. Okay, so obviously we just want to have a conversation with you today, bit of a chit chat about your journey, how you got to where you are now, obviously your time in Dubai, how that's been, how you see Dubai as a gaming location, and then we'll just sort of break that down and have a bit more of a sort of chit chat about how you got into gaming, where the love came from, what you're playing, etc.
100%.
The usual format. Hopefully you've seen the previous shows. So
I have indeed. They're really good, and I'm really glad that you're doing something like this for the industry and the region here to showcase everybody, get everyone involved, and help that pool of network come together. So I think it's a really, really cool opportunity that you guys are giving out to people, and I really do wish the success with it.
Thank you. I'll give you the money for that afterwards. So, so let's get started, shall we? So you obviously graduated back in the UK as a teacher.
Yeah.
Which obviously that flips very nicely to our last conversation that we had with Michael as well, because as I mentioned with Michael, it's not the typical career path of people going from having that passion for gaming and going into the education field, which I think is vitally important to go into that field to give other people the opportunity to take on that career. But obviously you pivoted and transitioned into development from teaching. So I want to understand how that came about. Like what was your direction growing up? Like what did you want to do? Yeah. And how did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I think everyone, I'm similar to everyone's got a weird, wacky story, and I'm really glad to share it. So my background's actually in computer science. So I did my undergrad in Cambridge in computer science. Past that, everything was good, and learned more about the computer science field in the industry. But my passion was always in gaming and interactive medias. Interactive art exhibits, augmented reality, virtual reality. Things are really at the forefront of technologies at the time. So I, done little projects for different companies around the Cambridge area, and ultimately I moved into teaching. And I did get asked the question, why'd you do that? But exactly what you pointed out there, John. I wanted to kind of give back and facilitate the ability for students and other people to get involved with computing. Computer science and computing in general moves very fast in the world, but the education is so far behind. So a couple of schools I was originally in were 15 years behind teaching Adobe Flash and stuff like this, and it's too outdated. So whenever I was in the teaching side of things, taught colleges, high schools, primary schools, and my role was really invigorating the computer science curriculum in the schools. But ultimately, I really put in a lot of gaming into it because kids love games. Everyone loves games, and it's a lot easier to explain a fundamental theory in computer science whenever you're linking it to a game, for example. So we were talking about hardware, for example. One of the lessons I was having, and traditionally the lesson was, here's a headset, here's a CPU. Blah. It's boring. But whenever I introduce and say, okay, streamers like Dr. Disrespect or PewDiePie and stuff like this is the technology they use. So it kind of links it really well together. So education was really interesting, but ultimately it wasn't really for me. I wasn't really getting what I wanted to put into out of it. So I transitioned back into the industry, and that's where we are today.
Perfect. So you obviously left education and sort of went into working with Unity as a technology, and I'd seen that you'd obviously had a few roles within sort of Unity development, and then that sort of led you into where you are now, which is launching Classy Game Studios. Yeah. So that was originally launched in the UK? Or
yes. So Classy Games, it actually started roughly around COVID. Whenever I was teaching, I noticed there's a lot of students, staff, parents, everybody was just miserable. It's COVID, everyone's locked in the house. So I thought, okay, how can we, or how can myself really help people? So what we developed is an application, a wellbeing application. And it's essentially a gamified way of understanding people's own well-being and their mental health. So this was distributed to students, staff, colleagues, everybody, anybody, and ultimately it was sent across all schools in Hampshire. And it was absolutely fantastic because it was an application designed for people to play and ultimately tell them, okay, these are the suggestions we have for your mental health. You're not eating enough greens. You need to go out walking more. And take less time on the TV, and that helped the transition going from education full time into back into the industry full time. So we established Classy Games, which then pivoted on to making Classy Games the full time business we're running. So we've had some clients all over the world doing AR, VR stuff, your typical mobile games, but we haven't really had the opportunity to launch our own. We've had a couple of smaller mobile games on our own title, but we're right now looking into launching our project in a couple of months called Silly Suspects. But I'm sure we're going to get into that in a little bit.
How did the idea for Classy Games come about?
It came about from me at the time. First of all, our logo was a top hat, a mustache, and a monocle.
Your t-shirt.
And it came about, the logo came about because at the time, COVID, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to grow a really big beard for a laugh. Yeah. So I grew my mustache, and it was huge. It was like a proper Victorian mustache, and it influenced the logo. But our kind of ethos is we don't add rubbish into our games. We don't make microtransactions. We don't make horrible gotcha ads. We don't want to just funnel money into ourselves. We make classy games. We want to make projects. We want to make games. We want to make applications that someone, when they come home from a hard day of work, can jump onto for 20 minutes and just decompress. We feel that too many games nowadays want your addiction. They want you glued to the screen. It's not healthy. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're in a day and age where everything is technology focused. You're likely in a 9-to-5 job looking at a screen. The last thing that you really need is to go home and sit on a screen for even longer. Intuitively, you could say it's bad for business, but we have to also understand that there's a fine line between running a business and making sure people actually enjoy your product in a healthy environment.
Gaming with a moral compass.
I would say that's perfectly yeah exactly.
Nice. So
your games that you're creating in the studio, what would you say your target demographic is for those?
Very good question. It would probably be late teens, 30 below. We utilize technologies that do require a little bit of understanding of current games, and the demographic for games are huge, up to 90 years old and stuff like this. But those games are traditionally a little bit more simpler. But it's not what we want to do. We do want to make our games that are a bit more interesting, a bit more intuitive, a bit more wild and wacky to interact with. So our demographic, as I said, would be under 30, late teens. We're trying to stay away from any age group lower than that. We feel the marketing in the world right now for that demographic is too memey and skibbity and all that stuff. So we kind of stay away from that. But we're having a really good success with what we're making, what we're delivering. A lot of people are playing our products, playing our games, and they're really enjoying it. And they're able to kind of take a step back from reality and just play a game. And it doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I think that's why the mobile market is always going to be so popular. Mm-hmm. People like to unwind and talk about demographics and stuff. People picking up Candy Crush and just flicking at it. Yep. It's something that you don't need to think about, can take your mind off it. It's not like going and sticking a console on and you've got a boss level and all of a sudden you're stressed trying to get through it and the difficulty's too hard and you're turning it down a level or whatever it might be. So there's always that need for something to unwind. Games aren't always there to stimulate. Yeah. They also need to be there for other reasons. And I think that the fact that there is that moral compass that you mentioned, or an educational piece, or a de-stress part of it in the world today is needed. It doesn't all need to be stimulation, intense.
Exactly.
Call of Duty, or Resident Evil. Like for me, I can't play Resident Evil. It would scare the hell out of me nowadays. Back when I was younger, I probably could. But you don't need all games don't need to be in that direction. So I think that's a really good thing what you're doing there.
Yeah, I seen something on LinkedIn a bit of a month ago, and it was someone saying that there needs to be another difficulty for games. So you've got easy, medium, and hard, but there also needs to be an adult difficulty. And
I saw that this morning.
there you go. If you're a working adult, you know, you play the game maybe once a month if you're lucky, because you've got life to do. But the idea is that you go into the game, and the game will say to you, "Oh, welcome back. Here's how you play the game. This is where you've left off because you've been away for a month." But you know, that's it. You don't need to make a game that is addictive psychologically. You know, make a game that is obviously addictive in terms of people want to play it because they're feeling the enjoyment out of it, not because they have to, like season passes and stuff like this. We think those are very psychologically damaging marketing and addictive ways to attract customers, and it's just really not where we want to be going.
No, I think that's a big, that season pass that you mentioned there, for a lot of the mainstream games now, just doesn't give you peace. It doesn't mean every week there's a new drop. And I mentioned stuff like EA Sports and stuff like that. Every week there's new cards, new players, new things. And if you're playing with friends, and especially at that younger demographic, and I remember I was like that. I'm still like it when the game gets released. I'll spend all my money in the first month and then never play it for the next 11 months afterwards. But there is that, I want that, I need to get that. And same with Call of Duty. There's, that gun, it's going to cost me 50 dirhams. You don't need it, but you want it. And it's that side of things that, well, I'm losing because other people have got better weapons than me. And it drags you back in and pulls you back in and makes you spend more money. And a game that you're buying for, I don't know, let's say $80.
You're
over the course of a
more.
year, it's costing you hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, if you are addicted to it and you are playing it as a group and you do want to be the best at it or whatever it might be, it can end up costing a lot of money. Or could end up costing parents a lot of money if it's their child that's playing it.
100%. Like, you know, I think that it is the latching on to the fear of missing out, which is not a good thing to kind of like, you know, grab people by. Whenever we were younger, and a lot of the viewers of this, you know, we had Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, you know, football stickers and stuff like this. Exactly. But they were something tangible. And, you know, they had quality to them. And if you bought it, you owned it, you had it. Where if you look at these products, let's just say EA Sports, FIFA, for example, you know, look at Ultimate Team. Lots of money has been put into that there by a lot of people. If that game closes down tomorrow, your money's gone. You have nothing tangible to hold on to, you know?
But what you're investing is only valid for a year.
I was just about to ask that.
It doesn't carry on. No. So when you go to the new title or the new game,
it's gone.
Everything you've done previously
is irrelevant.
It's there, but who's going to want to play the old game? When you got the new game out. So it is a strange market. And I know there's been countries that have tried banning it because they class it as gambling to an extent because you don't know what you're getting. You're opening a pack. What's in there is unknown. So you're gambling with that money to get something that you may want and you 9 times out of 10 won't get. So it's a weird... From a business perspective, don't get me wrong.
Money's good.
Money is great. And then from a business perspective, what the likes of Activision and what EA Sports and just EA in general and what they've done with these games and how they've monetized them, for them it's fantastic. Like I've always said, give the game away. Make it downloadable. They would make so much money still in the game. They don't need to sell the game nowadays. They've gone beyond that. But... for them, it works. It's just where we're looping back onto what you're doing with classy games is ultimately trying to create a different type of game that hasn't got the same... We talk mobile. You play Clash of Clans. You time out. Do you want to buy that time so that you can pay money so that you can build that now? Everything has got a value, a price, and everyone doesn't have patience. So all these games are designed to grab your time, grab your attention, and grab your money.
Yeah, a lot of push notifications as well.
So I think that having something that is more user-friendly in that side of things is good.
Even whenever I was teaching, so I still do lecturing, still do a little bit of teaching here and there, but whenever I was full-time teaching, the addiction that I noticed of kids on their screens, on their tablets, on their phones, to these games, like there's a lot of psychology behind the little dings you hear or the little colors that are used. So my thesis is in using color to psychologically influence someone's decision. So, whenever UI or a button is colored a certain way, it's not for random choice or it's not randomly picked. There's a reason for it. And it's to direct the user to, to do something ultimately. But unfortunately, that psychology can also be used to make you click that buy button. Yeah. And, you think to yourself, okay, it's 1 dirham or it's 5 dirhams. It's not a lot. But like you said earlier on, over the course of a year or a longer time, it's a lot of money and you don't know it. And unfortunately, there has been instances where people have lost a lot. So we want to stay away from that. And like Dwayne just said, gaming with a moral compass is what we're really focused on.
In regards to your company, obviously it's been going for about more or less 4.5 years now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
How have you found kind of bringing on interns and apprentices in this current market?
So the industry worldwide is a difficult industry. I wouldn't say it's a saturated industry, but it's definitely an industry where the barrier to entry is it's easy to download Unity or Unreal or go to and play around with it. But it's really, really difficult to say to a studio, hey, I need some proper experience. Can I help? Can I get any involvement? And the reason it's difficult is because, and to some degree I understand, you've got legal frameworks, you've got NDAs. These titles are worth millions and millions of dollars sometimes. You can't just have a student walking in, playing around with it and see what happens. It can't happen. But at the same time, there does need to be, in my opinion, a more of a ownership for huge studios and medium studios and even small studios to offer something for people getting involved. Now, those can be as simple as hosting events, networking events, or testing sessions or whatever. It's just to allow people to get some experience in the industry. So we are a small studio. There's only 7 of us. But over the course of the past year and a half, almost 2 years, we've had about 10 interns through our doors.
Which I think is fantastic, because something that I've been quite sort of vocal about when talking to the different workshops that we've all been involved in and the government aspects of it is studios have to have an obligation to bring interns in to gain that experience. We talk organic growth of the market here within the region, and we'll talk about the region in a little bit more detail shortly. But for me, I think there has to be that support from your big studios to offer an internship, apprenticeship, some sort of way of giving experience to newly qualified or people with the right qualifications but just don't have that exposure and experience. We know through hiring people, studios want people with track records. What have you worked on? What have you shipped? What titles? What consoles? They want to see the big names. They don't want to take risks in bringing people in with no experience and having to upskill them, train them, get them to where they are. Big studios want to hire experienced developers, artists, designers, whatever it might be, to come in and just build. So the way that I see things need to be here, and again, this is probably jumping ahead of ourselves, is I think what you are doing is what other studios also need to be doing, that commitment to we will take X amount on a 6-month or a yearly basis and gain them that experience so they're employable with experience on there. And Michael mentioned it previously, having that portfolio, having that, this is what I've done,
something you
this
point
is what
to.
I can do.
Something you can point to and say, yeah, I've worked on this or I've supported with this. And thank you very much for, kind of showcasing that. It's something we are very proud of. Come from an educational background, I know the importance of it, and I think that does allow ourselves to run these internships and apprenticeships a little bit easier because I know how to teach. But you're completely correct. There needs to be more of a ownership for huge studios who have millions of dollars to offer something. And these, we look at internships, it doesn't have to be an internship per se. It can be an apprenticeship, which is a boiled down version. You can have someone come into your office 10 hours a week, do little bits, do this 3D model and write this little script, get involved with the team, come to our meetings. It doesn't need to be a full-time gig. It can just be as whatever you can really offer, just help people get involved with. And like I pointed out, if there are legal issues involved, NDAs and stuff like this, host a networking event, have a game day, bring people together, because you've got the money to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're, as I said, we're a small studio, we're bootstrapped, but we're still trying our best, and we can't compete with huge studios in the world. But we, you know, if we help one person, that's more than zero. So that's why we just try our best to help people out, and we constantly have people applying and saying to us, you know, you're doing great. Can I get involved as well? I'd really love the opportunity, and we sometimes have to say to them, unfortunately, we can't. We've already got so many coming on, and you know, my job is to lead the company, program our stuff, and it can't be full time. You know, educating students and educating people, but I want to, but we just don't have the resources all the time.
No, great. And before we get on to sort of talking about the region in a little bit more detail, we touched on your new game, but I want to sort of understand it's Silly Suspects.
Silly Suspects.
It's a comedic first-person RPG.
Detective RPG. Yeah.
Detective RPG. Do you want to give us a little bit more?
Yeah.
Just tell us about it and when's it due out? And
100%. Yeah. So Silly Suspects actually came about from a murder mystery game that my wife and I played on a day, and typical murder mystery game, whodunit. You know, find out all these here clues, and you know, my wife is really into true crime and stuff like that. And I just said to her, darling, I'm sick of watching and reading and playing negative energy things. Let's make it fun.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, okay, let's do comedy, murder mystery, and that's what led to Silly Suspects. So we've been developing it for just over a year and a half, almost 2 years. And like you pointed out, John, it's a first-person detective role-playing game in which you're a detective in the cesspit of the world with the worst criminals possible. Now, I mean criminals that don't flush the toilet. Criminals that wear sunglasses inside. Criminals who park on two parking spaces and stuff like that. The real comedy things, right? And we have developed an in-house AI character generation system. We don't call our characters NPCs, although it's non-playable character. We call them characters because they are so rich in detail and personality and history and motive. So we're able to generate over 2 trillion unique characters for our games. Everything from their hair color, their eye color, what they hate, what they love, their religion, if they have a dog, all of these things influence the characters' whereabouts in the world. And then the criminal is going around eliminating characters based on their own personas. So let's just say, for example, a character is generated and they hate the color yellow, okay? You will then go around these crime scenes, investigate the crime scenes, and ultimately maybe find out that, okay, the people who are being eliminated, they love bananas, they love other yellow things. I can't think of it.
Speaking of the sun then.
Yeah, the sun, there you go. So you as the player have to piece together, okay, these people love yellow things.
Yeah.
The criminal must hate yellow things. Okay, but it goes a lot more rich into that there. You've got different stats and stuff like this. But every world you play, every character you meet, every crime case you try to solve, every criminal you try to break, it's all randomly generated.
yeah.
No game is ever going to be the same. And we're very proud of it. Coming from a bootstrapped position, it's quite a feat that we've challenged to complete. You know, like game dev, you think, okay, this is the idea. Okay, now this is the idea. Now, why is it going bigger? What's going on? And we were trying to scope it down, but it's just such a fun project to work on that it's came up and up and up. But yeah, we're currently in our kind of like really focused on our promotional stage right now. That's why we had a little quiz night a couple of weeks ago to kind of showcase it and to obviously help people network. But our demo is going to be released on the Steam October Steam Fest. Hopefully we get some traction from there, and then maybe into the Q1 2025 at full release. We're not going to make millions, we're not going to get millions of players, but that's never the goal. The goal is just to make something where people can come home and they think, you know what, I'm going to try and find who hates yellow things and just play fun with it, you know?
I was very offended when I went on your website though and was reading the description, and one of the criminals was talking about pineapple on pizza. And I'm pro pineapple on pizza, so therefore...
I'm pro pineapple on pizza as well.
You know what? I'm on the fence. It's not like I hate it, but I don't dislike it either.
I think it has to be like a proper good pineapple, not just something out of the tin. It has to be good. But it is just really emphasising that it's not theft, it's not murder, it's not those dangerously negative things.
Crimes.
It's the annoying people.
Yeah.
It's the annoying things, yeah. You know, for our promo material, we click generate essentially, and it spits out, okay, this is the character that you should base your promo material on. And the crimes that pop up are just hilarious, like feeding seagulls laxatives and stuff like this, you know, where they go to toilet all over the town square. Deflating car tires. There's a recent one that generated was inviting children to play hide and seek and then never looking for them. So it's all just these funny, weird things that we want people to investigate. And the crime scenes, it's not knives, it's not guns, it's like a tub of butter. Or like a rocking chair, just weird, random things that we kind of want to throw in. But it really helps the ability for our interns to get involved, because we just say to them, okay, you want to do a 3D model? Crime item, just pick something.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be a glass. It could be a speaker. Whatever it is, as long as it's not that negative side of things, and it gives them the ability to go wild and go free, kind of thing, because you're an intern, you're an apprentice, you learn how to model. I don't want to bound you to this box. So our game has kind of developed over time to really assist our interns kind of getting involved.
Yep. No, that sounds really good. And October, you say it comes out for demo?
Yeah, so Steamfest is our demo day on October Steamfest on Steam. But we're looking for full launch Q1 2025.
Perfect. Okay. Exciting times. Now, you mentioned there about the quiz night that you recently did.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that ever so slightly, because networking was something you mentioned earlier in the show as well, is the fact that networking does need to become a thing in the gaming scene. We have like the game expos. There's not much beyond that for the gaming community here. And I thought that was obviously a really good thing for you to do, was to run that event. I think you had sort of 40, 50 people there. Yeah. Dwayne let me down. I wasn't able to make it, but Dwayne came third, which was...
We done well, he done well.
Yeah. I think the team carried me a lot, to be honest. I got really lucky with the team plays there.
But is that something that you're looking to continue on and people to get involved in?
Yeah, so going back to the events in the region, I'm sick of B2B. Like, I understand businesses need to interact with businesses, but where's the B2C? Where's the...
Good point, by the way.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where's the holistic things? Why is there not an event hosted where studios from the region come with a laptop, you get a little booth, put your game up, everyone comes, have some food, have a coffee, play each other's games?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why does it always have to be, okay, how much money can I extract? I understand that's how business works, but we don't have to go full, give me your money. So we thought to ourselves, okay, how can we hold an event that is not focused on selling stuff, it's focused on people having fun and coming together. We thought, okay, let's run a little quiz night, because I've done them before when I was teaching, I've done them before whenever in university, and I've done them before, it's easy enough. So yeah, we went out, hosted the event, personally messaged a lot of people to see if they wanted to come, and it was a really good event. We had little silly suspect and gaming themed gizmos and gadgets to hand out to people, just as a little keepsake, I guess. The focus wasn't really to promote ourselves, it was just to network. And I was really happy with the other smaller studios and tech companies around here. So I messaged a few different companies. True Gamers was one, Rails Gaming, Coastal Studios, the host Icon Bar, and a couple of other different tech themed companies. We said to them, we're hosting a quiz night. It's completely free to entry. Do you want to sponsor any prizes? And some people give 2 hours vouchers for their gaming cafe, or like 500 dirham voucher. Stuff that is not going to break the bank. And everybody won something. There's not a single person who came to the quiz night who didn't leave with more than they came with. Yeah. And that's great, because it supports, first of all, the local business that is hosting us, and it supports the companies that have gave their sponsors or the prizes and awards. And it's all about building that ecosystem, and it's all about supporting each other. But I'm glad Dwayne won something as well.
Thank you very much.
He did say to me afterwards, he went, that was hard.
Yeah, it was a lot more challenging than I expected. But
whenever I was building it, people were saying, put in Mario and stuff like that. I was, nah, mate, that's...
Yeah, I feel like it's anything in the last 20 years, I'm going to maybe struggle with a little bit more. Like the retro gaming side of things is quite easy for me. I say that, we'll see. But last 20 years was always a bit more challenging. Yeah. But on the note of the ecosystem, how do you find the kind of gaming market or ecosystem at the moment within the region?
I think the region itself, it depends what we dictate as a region. You know, if we can include Saudi and stuff like this, there is growth, but let's boil it down to, you know, where we are immediately, the UAE. I think there's a desire to grow, but that desire needs backed up. It needs to be backed up with support, and it's not always just financial support. There's lots of different supports that can be offered, like we talked about apprenticeships, internships, helping with licensing fees, legal fees, lots of different things that can actually support. So there is the desire to help, but there's not a lot of actual help being sent out, and that is the major question. Why is that? You know, and I think that the decision makers sometimes do think, oh, okay, we don't have money for this, which I understand. That's fine. But like I just pointed out, a lot of things can be done without financial support. I am interested and I do see a growth in the industry here. But I think as well that there needs to be a lot more emphasis on grassroots. This is an expat country. People will come. Some people stay their entire lives, but usually people will leave at some stage. And I feel that if you just bring in expats, although we're expats ourselves, we're going to leave at some stage, you know? So we need to have that grassroots. We need to have a reason for people to stay. And if you invest in the people that have grown up here, have lived here for a long time, and they want to be here from a grassroots studio or a tech company or whatever you want to call them, it's not going to break the bank. There is a lot of support that can be offered. But I think that you need to have a grassroots economy to signal to the big players there is something here.
I feel like you might have just answered this question, but how would you? What are your kind of hopes and dreams for this region? And is that something you want to focus on, like the grassroots area, or the other areas that you feel like could help promote growth, so to speak?
Yeah, I think there's definitely two ways of seeing it. One is, do you bring the grassroots, or two, do you bring the big players first of all? And they kind of go intertwined with each other. You can't really focus on just one. Yeah. Depending on who you ask, they're going to say which one it is. But John and I were at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this exactly very topic. And you can't just say, okay, big players come. You can't just say grassroots come. It has to be a mixed approach to, you know, allow people to start up and allow the big players to situate themselves out here, but actually get involved out here. I think there's a lot of companies that kind of are out here, but aren't out here, if this makes sense.
There's companies with their names to the region.
Yes.
However, their presence is maybe sales.
Yeah,
rather than,
like Riot or Tencent.
You've got EA are here, NetEase. There's companies here.
Yeah.
But what are they doing here? They're not really developing from here. Mm-hmm. They're just here with maybe a sales function or something like that. And I think that what you mentioned there has to be a collaboration. Yep. It has to be big names, help grow the grassroots through internships, apprenticeships, support. Having those big names here will encourage more people to A, move here, B, want to get into that industry and maybe go and work for that company. Because at the moment, you go through the education into game design, for instance. Where do you go at the end of that?
There's nothing else.
You could go get an internship with one of the few that are offering that. They can work with you, for instance. But then where do they go after that? So I think that there has to be that pool of bringing in the big names that can come here, set up, build that ecosystem from that front. But then it's a case of what the likes of Michael's doing with the education and a lot of the other universities now. There's I think 4 or 5 that are offering sort of degrees within that space now. What they're doing is to help grow the grassroots, which again boils down back to the DPG and their 2033, the residency, the 30,000 job creation. That's going to come off the back of the education that's now happening over the next 8 years or so. So there's a lot there, but it is, I feel like you mentioned, it has to be a partnership between bringing in the big names to allow the grassroots to grow. Because at the moment, if you're doing the grassroots,
where do they go after?
Where do they go?
Yeah, so we talk to the universities regularly as well. Whenever we're doing our outreach for the interns, and they say the exact same thing. What's the stage after? And it's unfortunate that there just isn't a lot of rules out here for these. And if you have the big players and they are invested in the grassroots, they can see that growth. They can see that those people coming into the industry that can actually help out in their studios. Because like you pointed out, John, studios, they don't want fresh grads. They want people who have shipped Call of Duty. They want PUBG player, developers, stuff like that. So how do these here people compete without the experience? And it's just very difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be a long burn. But for you, with your background and your experience, if you could give one bit of advice to somebody wanting to get into the industry, what would that be?
Reaching out to people is something that I think is extremely important and undervalued, specifically in this region, networking. What I encourage all my interns to do is once every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, find someone in the industry on LinkedIn, send them a message saying, hi, I am this person. I was wondering if I can pick your brains for 20 minutes on a call or if I can buy you a coffee. Because you're first of all learning and you're networking, which is very, very valuable out here. And anywhere in the world, actually, it's not so much about what you know, it's who you know. But obviously you back up who you know with what you know. So definitely network, meet people, and don't just reach out for a job. I've had many people, unfortunately, that have just reached out and within the first message, can I have a job? And it just sours the taste. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you can offer. So let's have a conversation first. Let's get to know each other. So whenever a role does open up, or I know someone who does have a role, or yourselves, if I'm aware that you guys are hosting a role, I can say to these people, yeah, go to these guys. So it's all about having that collaboration, that friendliness, that networking. So that would 100% my biggest advice is reach out, network.
Perfect. No, good. Well, that's kind of the end of the serious part of the conversations. So now we kind of wanted to touch on where your love for gaming came from. Because obviously it all has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So normally we'll start with, what was the first console you owned?
First console I owned.
And this will give us a good indication of how old you are as well.
I would say technically it'd probably be a Game Boy Color.
Okay.
Strong choice, but yeah. I think I was too young to like really understand what it was. Then I'd say GameCube.
Yeah.
But really I'd say the Xbox 360.
I'm semi-pro on what's it called? Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube. I feel like that's if there's a game I'm definitely going to win, it's definitely
the GameCube for like 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
So you definitely peaked in high school.
Way too soon.
But yeah, so Game Boy, you got Pokemon. GameCube was Sonic KOs. That was a great game. I remember going over to my mate's house and always playing that. But it really was the Xbox 360 for me, and with Halo 3. I will die on a hill fighting for Halo 3. I think that game was an absolute masterpiece, and it was a masterpiece in terms of story and lore and content, but it was also a masterpiece in breaking down boundaries and using new technologies. The internet was a thing, but it wasn't widespread, if you will. I remember saying to my mum and dad, like, please, can we get internet for the house? They had no idea what it was. Like, please give me internet. I want to play Xbox Live. And to this day, there's people that I met on Xbox playing Halo that I'm still in contact with. Because it was a game that really facilitated people talking to each other and networking. And I think if we look at specifically voice chat in modern games, that doesn't exist anymore. You either jump on Discord with people you already know, but let's use voice chat, local voice chat more, where people can meet each other. But you've also got hard hitters at Call of Duty 4, Gears of War 2, the OGs. Those were definitely the games that I would love.
They're the ones you grew up with.
Yeah.
So what, like you mentioned there, because you probably answered our second question there.
I'm reading your mind.
What was the first game that you really fell in love with?
Halo.
Was it Halo?
It was 100% Halo 3. And I fell in love with it for a multitude of reasons. The first reason it's my first kind of experience playing online gaming. The story of Halo was, it's a fantasy, futuristic sci-fi. Really love that. But after, the nostalgia and the enjoyment of playing it as a game, I started to ask myself questions like, how does this system work? How does this feature work? So they had a Forge system where you can build your own maps, and it really kind of allowed my child mind to think, okay, how does, is this physics? What is this? How does this calculate and stuff like that? That led my development into computing and understanding how systems work. And I think it's really fascinating that when you think, what computers are,
Yeah.
and like, you see you're playing a game on screen, that's just like parts of rock dust put into a CPU and a GPU that's doing all this. I always tell my students that computing is like a jigsaw, but this jigsaw, every piece can fit together. There's no single story. You decide how it works, how it interprets different things. And that's what I think the beauty of gaming is as well, that you can create so many worlds and fantasies that ultimately just come from a little bit of electricity in a machine.
It's pretty cool. Nice way of looking at it. What's your favourite game of the last decade?
Decade.
10 years.
10 years. When was that? 2004? 2014?
2014.
Yeah, we made this mistake earlier while coming in. So yeah.
2004. I was thinking, I'm an old man. I'd say decade is quite difficult to say, but I'd definitely say that in the recent couple of years, I've been playing a few games, all for different reasons. The first game I used to really play was Squad, and it's a first-person military shooter game. I love that because I was part of a community, clan. We had clan matches and stuff like that. That was really fun. That was during COVID as well, where people were coming together and talking. Gaming exploded during COVID.
Call of Duty had its big regeneration ultimately, didn't they, during COVID? So,
I've also been playing Crusader Kings 3. That's a really cool game. You're essentially in control of a dynasty over time, and you've got to do diplomacy, intrigue, stewardship to kind of really run your dynasty. But another game that I'll die on the hill for this century, or this decade, sorry, is Project Zomboid. Have you ever heard of it?
I've not heard of that, no.
Guys, you
Not
need to
familiar.
play. It started off as an indie game, and I think it's the only game, minus Left 4 Dead, the only game that does zombies properly.
Okay. Big statement, because there's a lot of zombie games.
Yeah, it's an isometric game, and it's a zombie survival game, but you're not this loaded up tough guy like Doom, who's going around smashing zombies up. You're Joe Bloggs. Whenever you spawn, it says to you, "This is how you die," because you're not supposed to survive. You're going to die.
Yeah.
But it's how do you develop your character over that time frame. You may spawn in as a burglar, you may spawn as a first aid person or a lumberjack, and it's not just killing zombies. It's learn how to survive, how to feed yourself, how to wash yourself. You can get depressed by not watching TV enough and stuff like this. So it's a really, really in-depth game. And what I love about it as well is it's been out for roughly 10 years, I want to say. I've only been playing it for the past 2 or 3 years, but the developers are still working on it, and they're still supporting it to this day.
That's cool.
Where you get a lot of studios that will release something like we were talking about earlier on, and the next year they release something new it's done with. So
Yeah.
Project Zombie would, for this decade, would be the game I'm dying on the hill for.
Interesting.
enough.
I'm going to start using that expression, dying on a hill.
Are you going to die on the hill for stuff?
Yeah, I don't know what. I'm just going to start throwing out a bit more.
Okay. Last game you purchased. And this can be digital or physical.
Yeah.
Or some people like to give us both. It's entirely up to you on that.
Okay. So it's actually my birthday in 10 days. So happy birthday to me in 10 days. I expect some birthday cards from yourselves. So I decided to treat myself to an early birthday present. I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a Steam Deck. Went on the Amazon, clicked buy, got a Steam Deck. And originally I was like, I don't really need this. I don't play enough games on my own computer, never mind a Steam Deck. Guys, I can't put it down.
No?
It's amazing. It's really good. I'd definitely suggest getting one. I don't earn any commission by selling them, but I would 100% suggest getting one.
And a discount code Jamie.
Yeah,
10%
do that.
at checkout.
Silly suspects minus 10 or something like that. But the reason I got it was to kind of detach from my development. I'm on the computer all the time developing. I wanted something to get away. So I got the deck, and I was just searching for cozy, relaxed, non-stressful games. And I've been playing a game called Darf Romantic.
Darf Romantic.
I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But it's essentially a game which you're building a little world with different tiles. Forests, farms, houses, rivers, train tracks. And you get like different bonuses for putting tiles down. And it's just so chill. And you can play it for 10 minutes, put it down and come back the next day and just leave off from where you left it. So that's definitely, that's the most recent game I've bought and I've played, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Perfect. And that probably then answers, is that what you're currently playing at the moment?
Yes, that's what I'm playing right now. But I've also got Metro Exodus.
Yeah.
That went on sale. I haven't played it either yet. That went on the sale for $5 for like their entire series, 90% off or something like that. And I've heard some really good reviews about that, so I've bought that, and that's now in my play library. But what I'm really excited about fully playing and waiting for the release of is Silly Suspects. Obviously developing that, but we're excited to play it from a player's point of view rather than a developer's point of view.
What aside from that, what else are you kind of looking forward to in the next?
You can't say your own title.
Yeah. Is there any
else are you
game that
looking
you're
forward
like,
to?
I can't wait to buy that. I'm definitely getting that as soon as it comes out.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I can't think of the name. I can't think of the name right now. But there's this here game, and you're essentially in the trenches in World War One, and you're managing a small squad of soldiers. But it's not just you go fight here. You do this. It's okay. This person has suffered shell shock, or this person has received a bad letter from home. This person has received a Victoria Cross and stuff like that. So you're managing people.
Yeah.
Not just soldiers, but you're in World War One. You're in the trenches, so they are soldiers. So you're this commander, and you have to do different missions. Like a supply run. Maybe this here person is feeling sick, so they'll do the supply run this time. Or this person they're feeling brave, they're feeling strong. They're going to go on a night raid. But it is about not just the war aspect of it. It is about the people aspect of it, and that's why I'm really excited for that. It's already out, but I haven't got it yet. But I'm looking forward to it. I can't remember the name.
Well, we'll look it up and we'll put it in the comments after the end.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for tuning in for this episode of the Level Up Lounge, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.